Qigong and newborn babies. That is going to be the topic of this episode of Qi Life. So this is another one that was a request from a viewer. It's one of the Long White Cloud Qigong students and instructors currently doing another course at the moment, and actually it was really nice. In one of the sessions for that course, he was there in the session with his newborn baby with them as well, just very recently. So that was really cool. And so he sent through an email saying, hey, could you maybe do something about how Qigong relates to newborn babies? And so I'll start by talking about some of the things that he actually put in the email, which I thought were just some nice little observations, and then address some of the things that he asked about as well. So one of the things he talked about was, in 5-element theory, how the child drains the parent. I think he was experiencing that particularly lately. Very common to feel a bit drained as a new parent, dealing with a child who wakes up a lot during the night and all the things that you need to do. Fully understandable. And that is, it stands out a lot as a newborn. It carries on throughout a child's life actually as well, but very much stands out as a newborn how a child drains the energy of the parent. But at the same time, how that's being drained is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just part of the natural process of life, and it can actually be a really, really good thing, because that draining encourages the parent, it encourages their energy to flow more freely when it's in a healthy balance. Like when the parent's life is working in a good, healthy way, so they have the support they need and things like that, that having the child and the drain that comes from that child actually encourages the parent to have their life in order, to do all the things that they need to do, so that they're in a position to have the energy that they need to give to the child. It can be a positive thing. So in his email, he also said, there's this contrast between the real challenges that come from having a child, but then also the joy that they bring. And these two things come together. There's kind of a yin and yang balance there, like big challenge, but also big joy. And I think that's true as well. And what a beautiful example of that in having a newborn child and seeing this principle come to the fore. He also commented in terms of this yin-yang sort of relationship as you see it in a newborn, the way that a child can move so quickly from being highly agitated and crying to being completely peaceful. And they just move smoothly, quickly between these two contrasting states. A lot more quickly as a newborn. Later on, we start to, some of these cycles slow down as we mature, but we see it so clearly as a newborn. And that then feeds into some of the other things he mentioned, which is, he said, someone once told him that that babies can see chakras and colors and auras and things like that, and then we forget how to do it later on as we grow up. And he was wondering about that. And look, I think the answer to that is how can we know, right? There are some things we can know, but can we know that specifically that babies can see chakras and colors and auras? Probably not, because they're non-verbal at that stage, and generally they don't have a clear memory to share later on about that. So it's possible they could, but I don't think there's any way that we could know. What we do know is, as a newborn child, they're very, very delicate and sensitive. So they are very sensitive to energy in general. They're sensitive to everything around them. They're more sensitive to the cold, to the heat, to what they eat, but including to energy. So is it plausible that maybe they can see, is probably not quite the right word in terms of seeing chakras or colors and auras and things like that, because I think there's often a misunderstanding about this sort of thing, not just for babies, but for adults as well, in that you know, in terms of seeing colors in people's aura, it's not that the cones in some people's eyes are just built differently and they can physically see the color better than someone else's. Like, you know, how well your eyes work and physically perceive color, that's a physical thing, right? The perception of colors and auras and things like that is more, yeah, it's a perception. It's not necessarily a physical sense. And it's more, there's an awareness, a sensitivity that is interpreted in a visual way. And so, yeah, it's a sensitivity rather than necessarily physically seeing. So is it possible that babies, because they're so sensitive, are sensitive and maybe can perceive these qualities within their energy? Yeah, that's plausible. Yeah, why not? Don't think we can necessarily know one way or another, but certainly they are very sensitive to everything, including all the aspects of energy around them. And I guess this feeds into the last part of this topic of the questions that he asked, which was like, are there any sort of Qigong tips or things that we can do, you know, with babies, Qigong for babies sort of thing? I think certainly my answer to this is, well, it depends on how broadly you consider Qigong, you know, how broad you consider that to be. The biggest thing really at this early stage of a child's life is the environment you create for it. Because the baby comes, unless there's something really specific that has gone out of sorts, you know, some kind of imbalance or issue that's there which requires specific intervention. And this could be physical, you know, a physical medical issue, or it could be something energy-wise, in which case you're looking at, you know, specific treatment, medical Qigong. This would be a time when the term medical Qigong is quite appropriate to address a specific issue, which is beyond the scope of anything I'll talk about in this video. Beyond that, the real key when a baby is developing and growing is simply to give them a healthy environment to grow and develop within. And that includes all the physical things, not too warm, not too cold, you know, physically safe, good food, all that sort of thing. It's simply to create the right environment, because they come when they're born with everything that they need naturally to grow and develop, and we just want to let them do that. So in terms of Qigong, the main thing really is to create a healthy, harmonious energy environment for them. And a lot of this comes down to, well, the home, literally the energy within the home, that can be part of it, but also the energy that you maintain within yourself as a parent, and keeping your own energy healthy and balanced and harmonious. And then the child is going to be interacting with you. This is both the mother and the father. You know, when you're holding them, when the mother's feeding them, when, you know, anything that you're doing with them, they're interacting with your energy and giving them a safe, caring, gentle, nurturing energy environment is going to support their healthy development through that time. So mainly the main thing is take care of the mother, take care of the father to some extent, make sure there's a healthy energy environment in terms of other people who are entering into the space. That's really it. So a lot of it is just doing your own Qigong. It's not so much that you need to get your baby doing little Qigong movements or things like that. They're going to develop naturally in a healthy way. Possibly sometimes, you know, not necessarily getting into, you know, the specifically therapeutic aspect, you know, if there's something seriously out of balance that needs to be addressed. But, you know, simple things like by calming your energy, you can sometimes calm the baby's energy, you know, little things like that. That's really about as far as it goes, certainly in my opinion, in terms of Qigong and babies at that early stage of life. It's really about taking care of taking care of the parents, the people interacting with them, so there's a healthy energy environment, and then let them develop naturally. I guess one thing related to this actually that's traditional from a Chinese medicine, Chinese philosophy perspective, ties very much into this actually, is that there was a tradition after a baby is born, immediately afterwards, for both the mother and the child to have a whole month of just resting. Not trying to do anything, just rest. Because that process of developing a new life, you know, from a fetus through to being ready to born and then giving birth, a huge amount of physical and energy resources goes into that. And the best thing initially is just let things recover naturally before you try to do anything. Try to actively engage or change it. So just let everything rest and recover. And then once you get past that initial stage, you can start to become a little bit more active and so on. And that's a traditional Chinese thing, a whole month of just resting. And I think it's good advice. So anyway, some very general sort of advice, but maybe useful, a little bit of context, way to think about Qigong as it relates to babies. We've got a little bit of a theme. Did just have the previous vlog about pregnancy. Now I've got newborn babies. I wonder what the next one will be. I look forward to seeing you in another vlog soon.